Persian philosophy occurred due to a series of large-scale political and social changes, such as the Arab and Mongol invasion of Persia, which can be split into pre-Islamic period and post-Islamic period. But before we talk about the post and pre-Islamic periods, we need to learn about the history. Persia served as a conduit between the East and the West. They had access to knowledge from India and Europe and would often pass what India had to Europe and vice versa. Persia was led by great kings such as King Cyrus, also known as Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire, the first Persian empire. Under his rule, the empire embraced all their states and expanded vastly. They also had King Darius, who ruled the empire at its peak. However, Alexander the Great came into Persia and defeated Darius III, which made Persia a province of Macedonia, where it lost its empire. The pre-Islamic period. The center religious philosophy of ancient Persia was named after the priest and prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, who appeared in Persia at some point between 1000 to 588 BC. He was the first one to treat the problem of evil in philosophical terms, as he personified goodness, love, wisdom, and beauty. It was said that Zarathustra was the spirit of the supreme god Ahura Mazda, who was the lord of life. For his good virtue, God gave him the Avesta, which was a book of knowledge and wisdom, forming the basis of Zarathustrian teaching. This was known as the basis of all other religions that came after. In order to keep people from committing sin and going into the evil side when they are faced with good versus evil situation, priests called Magi were appointed to keep the social order. Another Persian religious preacher called Mani founded Manichaeism, which claimed to present the complete version of teachings of Zarathustra, Buddha, and Jesus. One of Manichaeism's important principles was a dualistic cosmology or theology, which stated that there are two original principles of the universe: light, which is the good one, and dark, which is the evil one. They believed that this light and dark had been mixed by a cosmic accident which tainted everything except God. It said that a man's role in this life is through good conduct to release parts of himself that belongs to the light. A pro-socialism Persian reformer who claimed to be a prophet of God called Mazdak founded Mazdakism. It shared the same dualistic cosmology like Manichaeism, but while Manichaeism saw the good and bad mixture as a cosmic tragedy, Mazdak viewed it in a more neutral and optimistic way. Islamic philosophy was influential in the rise of modern philosophy, including the development of a strict science of citation, was a method of open inquiry to disprove claims and the separate of theology and law of precursor to secularism. Two main Islamic thoughts are Kalam, which deals with theology, and Falsafa, which deals with interpretations of Aristotle and Plato. In Mutazilism, they use independent thoughts to open questions of science and society. They had 5 principles: divine unity, divine justice, promise and threat, the intermediate position in advocating the good and forbidding the evil. Asharism. Asharism was founded by Abu al-Hasan al-Ashari. It permitted philosophical methods to be applied in science and technology. They believed that the comprehension of the unique nature and characteristics of God go beyond human capability, while human has free will. Avicennism. Avicennism was founded by Avicenna. He inquired into the question being, which distinguished essence and existence. Averroism. Averroism was founded by Averroes. He believed that the world was eternal and that the soul is divided into 2 parts. One is individual and the other is divine, and the resurrection of the dead is not possible.
Indian philosophy gives importance to harmonious coexistence, that is, individuals to exist in cosmos, and the assertion to individuality was to avoid it and minimize. The law of karma states that for every effect there's a cause, and for every action there's a reaction. Self-realization, the direct experience of one's inner nature, is the goal of all systems of Indian philosophy. Indian philosophy explains the need for morality through concepts and inner peace through religious texts. The Rigveda and other Vedas express various Hindu beliefs about such matters as the worship of the gods, marriage, and funeral rites. The Rig Veda contains of various worships of the deities Varuna, Indra, and Soma, poems and hymns praising the same and even objects. Upanishads are texts of religious and philosophical nature oral writings, and this is considered important to us because of its unique stand in the Indian philosophy. It focuses on the concept of Brahman and Atman. Atman, which is the soul or the individual soul, considered the essence of each individual living thing, whereas Brahman is the world soul or cosmic soul, considered as an eternal essence of the universe and the ultimate divine reality. The phrase Atman is Brahman means that Atman is present in the same reality of the world, but however, these are two separate and distinct, thus, that the individual soul is the world soul. Upanishads divided the souls into two types, called the Jivatma and the Paramatma. Jivatma is the individual self, and the Paramatma is the immortal self or the Supreme Lord. How the souls meet can be viewed in Advaita, states God is within me, therefore Paramatma and Jivatma are the same. Whereas in Dvaita states God is separate, I am separate, therefore Jivatma and Paramatma are separate entities. So when you gain liberation through moksha, then the Jivatma will be part of the Paramatma. Transmigration is another prominent concept explained in the Upanishads. Here, the person's essence is viewed as punishment for the evil living, and eventual release from the successive reincarnations is the way in which we transcend these bonds. Thus, Hinduism end goal of life is free from the suffering caused from the reincarnations or rebirth. Ultimately, this will free us from the cycle. Moksha liberation, according to Hinduism, is the end of the death and rebirth cycle and is classified as the fourth and ultimate goal. It is achieved by overcoming ignorance and desires.
Siddhartha Gautama, who was also known as the Buddha, was an Indian philosopher who was believed to introduce Buddhism. His journey started when he was 29 years old, who was born with luxury and privilege, said to leave his family place to meet his subjects, at which time he was confronted with the reality of human suffering. After being confronted with the suffering, he went to understand the truth of birth and death. After multiple attempts to attain enlightenment through rigorous asceticism, he did not succeed. Finally, instead of punishing his body to find release from the confines of the self, he would work with his own nature and practice purity of mental defilements to release enlightenment. By sitting under a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, Buddha attained enlightenment through pure meditation and reflected on his past experiences.
The goal of Buddhist philosophy is nirvana, and to achieve this, it needs to investigate the nature of the world through righteous living.
For the Indian Buddhist philosophers, the teachings of the Buddha were not meant to be taken on faith alone, but to be confirmed by the logical analysis of the world. The Buddha also expected his disciples to approach him as a teacher in a critical fashion and scrutinize his actions and words, thus to be speculative and be able to question. The Buddhist teachings, like the Hinduism, focuses on the goal of living by following the right path. Right effort, for instance, requires one's abandoning of wholesome mental states such as evil desires and temptations, and right understanding means knowledge and insight, and understanding the seed of wisdom that destroys ignorance and helps oneself to attain nirvana, a state of enlightenment.
Buddha thought that respect should be earned by moral deeds and spiritual attainment, not given on the basis of one's birth, thus focusing on morality. There is no permanent self, he said, and views that a person as a set of constantly changing process as one seeks change and awareness of that desire for change.
China was considered as the middle kingdom by the Chinese themselves, as they believed they were between heaven and the rest of the barbarians. They had a king called Huang Ti, who united, developed, and advanced China to the point where China became the first ones to print books, write block prints, and invent gunpowder. One of the earliest books was the I Ching, or the Book of Changes, which was written by Wen Wang around 1120 BC. This book talked about something called yin-yang. Yin-yang describes how seemingly opposite or contrary forces may actually be complementary or interconnected in the natural world. Yin represents everything about the world that is dark, such as negative direction, passivity, darkness, cold, death, and female. While Yang represents everything about the world that is illuminated, positive direction, activity, productivity, light, heat, life, and male. He who must speak about the way does not know it. This line is said by the greatest philosopher before the Confucian time, Lao Tzu, who wrote the book Tao Te Ching, or Book of Ways, which talked about the way to live life wisely. He talked about Taoism. It says that you have to reject everything that does not favor living a simple life and instead live in harmony with nature, not think about intellectual knowledge as it is bad and it confuses people. Both cultural and religious aspects of Taoism were appropriated in East Asian cultures, influenced by China, especially Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. But the original source of Taoism is said to be in I Ching. Taoism is also what provoked a reaction from one of China's most influential philosophers, Confucius.
Chinese philosopher, teacher, and political figure known for his popular aphorisms and for his models of social interaction. His teachings, preserved in the Analects, focused on creating ethical models of family and public interaction and setting educational standards. The faith in the possibility of ordinary human beings to become awe-inspiring sages and worthies is deeply rooted in the Confucian heritage, and the insistence that human beings are teachable, improvable, and perfectible through personal and communal endeavor is typically Confucianism. Confucius' moral teachings are based upon the individual's commitment to sincerity, honesty, and personal harmony. Confucius is known as the first teacher in China who wanted to make education broadly available and who was instrumental in establishing the art of teaching as a vocation, indeed, as a way of life. He believed that all human beings could benefit from self cultivation. He inaugurated a humanities program for potential leaders, opened the doors of education to all, and defined learning not merely as acquisition of knowledge but also as character building. Confucius' social philosophy was based primarily on the principle of Ren, or loving others, while exercising self discipline. He believed that Ren could be put into action using the golden rule: what you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others. The ideal person is trustworthy, loyal, sincere, and intellectually curious, but reserved and thoughtful. The teachings of Confucius define the future course of Chinese political and intellectual life. Confucius' political beliefs were based on the concepts of self discipline. He believed that a leader needed to exercise self discipline in order to remain humble and treat his followers with compassion. In doing so, leaders would lead by positive example. Although Confucianism is not an organized religion, it does provide rules for thinking and living that focus on love for humanity, worship of ancestors, and respect for elders. The history of China has been marked by cycles of chaos and order. Confucianism seems to respond to these cycles by providing rules for people to live together successfully.
Later philosophers.
Moti didn't accept Confucianism as he saw it as impractical. He wanted to have logical proof to explain the existence of spirits and ghosts, and his teaching led to Moism, which related to logical, rational, and scientific thinking. He chose to fight social evil with universal love, which could ultimately bring about a utopia. This is why he is known as the philosopher of universal love, and his teachings form the basis of Chinese pacifism. Yang Chu, contradicting Moti, developed theories on the denial of God and the afterlife. He believed that people would just be subjected to their own natural fates, whether they are good or bad, the only difference being that the wicked would seem to enjoy life more than the good.
Mencius, yet another philosopher, wanted to establish social order, allowing people to pursue the good life. He thought to make benevolent leadership and individual goodness social norms. According to Mencius, Yang's principle is each for himself, which does not acknowledge the claims of sovereignty.